1 and 2. Oh no.
I think we're good. Oh,
Oh no.
you just doxed yourself a little bit there.
Fully doxed. Shit.
What's going on, everybody?
What
Outside
is
of
up?
exercise, having some issues there.
Yeah, a little technical malfunction. I have no idea who that was. How you doing, man? What's going on?
I am good, man. I'm
And
doing
what
really good. It's Monday. It's really, really good weather here in Texas right now before we get maybe some snow again. But otherwise, doing pretty good. Really excited to go over tonight's episode. This is going to be probably a slightly controversial one, but I'm excited to hear what the Hexicans have to think about it. We'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic in the fitness, nutrition, diet, just like online world in general. Probably even if you're not tuned into this space, you've probably heard this term chucked around or advertised to you in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so hopefully everyone had a really, really good week. Hit some of your targets. While we're getting kind of spun up here, one of the things, if you're here in the chat, maybe you could just throw in the chat what you think metabolism is in reference to. So just the term in general, metabolism. Try and put a really, really brief description in the comments for me. And then as we get spun up here, I'll kind of reference back and see what you guys had, just as like a little soundboard to see what some people like in the world actually think of, or what they might have been told metabolism is. So yeah, I do have a hat on. I've got my headset on. You have no idea. I mean,
That's funny.
somebody had a hat on.
It's all
Yeah.
right. It's all right. People will forget. But
Yeah.
yeah, guys, metabolism. Is it bad? Is it good? Is it fast, slow? Is it
Yeah.
broken because of genetics? Is it the best thing ever? You never had issues in the past. We get to dive into the science behind what's actually going on. We get to dive into the strategies involved, right? Creating a situation where metabolically you could have an advantageous situation, right? To either create weight loss, to create no weight gain, and to be able to really exist in culture more effectively. That'll be kind of what I talk about more so on my end, is existing in culture, whether it be America or otherwise, if you're out of country, in a way that allows you to have the foods you want and honestly the calorie count that you want it at, but without obviously regressing and gaining weight in the process, whether it's vacation, holidays, like whatever the situation is, family, family get-togethers, whatever. Being able to manipulate your metabolism and understand what to do with charting and weighing yourself and understand how to create this stuff is probably the most effective skill set anybody, especially in the 2020 decade, could ever have. Right now that we have all these issues going around with certain viruses and this and that, right? Especially with pre-existing health conditions, manipulating your metabolism is probably, like, my opinion, is the most effective skill set anybody can have to maintain overall health and create a situation where we can improve our health pretty easily, regardless of how active you are for the most part, and regardless of what your situation is, whether it be lockdowns with no gyms, or we're outside running every day, or somewhere in between. So yeah, we're really excited to get into this stuff today. I know Hexercise got a lot of really cool stuff that he'll probably get into here shortly.
Yeah, I'm gonna try my best to break it down into what its truest form or definition is, and then try to take some guesses at what people are referencing when they're trying to sell you shit. When you see the hot lines like, "Is your metabolism broken? Is metabolism slow? Your metabolism is bad, and it's stopping this from
The
happening."
worst.
Right? So it's yeah, I'll try to take a very, very uh, based approach here in describing
Based approach.
metabolism, and not being too aggressive on, because I do uh, Ryan and I don't think are going to be split on this, but he's going to be talking about, I think, manipulating metabolism, and I'll be just referencing metabolism as a thing that can
Yep.
change. And of course, like, if you understand all of the tenets that we're going to talk about, there definitely is a way to go about manipulating it. Um, it's kind of been driven that way, I think, really, really hard by so much of the community, where people are like, what, why, are all worried about their metabolism. And really, if you are checking off your boxes and meeting certain numbers or goals, or however you set it up, like, your metabolism will take care of itself. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It is
It
a
is
reference
it.
to a sum of all things. So yeah, I usually take it. I don't like people like making not Ryan, sorry, like when the fitness industry kind of categorizes one thing as being bad. Like a slow metabolism is not
Oh yeah.
necessarily bad.
Verbiage is very important.
Hmm. And like I think I've mentioned this multiple times already, but in fitness and in this physiology world, you can basically make any statement if it's a one-off statement incorrect if you give it a different context or some actual
Mhm.
nuance. So there is a lot that goes into this. So I'm really, yeah, going to try to again be very, very fundamental, very basic, and we'll reference a little bit of the fundamental episode from. So it was the fundamentals of energy balance. There'll be some references to that. So if you don't remember any of that, please make sure to get your questions in. And yeah, I think we can probably take it away with each of our, I guess, like mindset about metabolism. Do you want me to start, Ryan, or do you want to start?
Um, let me start with just the start point of metabolisms, and then I think you getting into the science-based approach of right the actual underpinnings of how it's actually going about would be
Hmm.
helpful in that order, just to kind of get people into a good spot before we hit them with the facts.
Sure.
Um, and what I mean by that, guys, is metabolically speaking, like exercise said, we're not in a good or bad spot, right? There's no like, oh, your metabolism is bad or you inherited genetics that are just not going to allow you to do X, Y, and Z. But it is important to have an understanding of where things sit from an energy balance standpoint, from whether or not we're gaining weight or losing weight at a certain energy intake and how active we are. Because going into whether it be losing weight, whether it be I just want to maintain this weight, or if you're a Mexican that wants to maybe put on some weight and make improvements, put on muscle, it is incredibly important to know kind of where things sit. And by where things sit, I don't really, I guess, mean your metabolism per se, but really just understand what's going on with the energy balance equation for yourself. And that's huge because that does dictate kind of where your metabolism is at for a number of different reasons. So, for example, if I have somebody who comes to me and says, Ryan, I've been eating 1,200 calories a day. I'm doing all this cardio and I just can't lose weight, Ryan. I lost 15 pounds. I'm stuck. I cannot lose weight. Can you please help me? The first thing I'm going to tell them is like, no, like we are at rock bottom here. Metabolically speaking, it is adapted to all these inputs, right? The activity levels, your BMR, all these things have basically gotten used to the intake, right? And we can't lose weight anymore on them. So I'm not going to come in and make you go lower in calories where it's unhealthy. And I'm not going to make you do more activity levels when you're already likely doing too much. So the point is somebody could easily be in a spot who is struggling with weight loss, for example, and their best path moving forward is to get out of that metabolic adaptation that they've been in, because you just can't create any more weight loss effectively or in a healthy manner. And on the flip side, if you are in the side where you are able to eat a lot of eat a lot of food and calories and get away with it, that's great. But understanding this also allows you to be able to adapt and make the right decisions if something changes in your life. When everything changed, when coronavirus hit and everybody got locked down, the energy balance equation changed. We were not as active as we used to be. We are eating differently. We are eating out, right? Our nutritional habits changed. And typically a calorie count went up, activity levels came down, right? And people who typically didn't gain weight gained weight and shifted up in body fat percentage to ranges that were more difficult to, come back down from. The point being is this is an incredibly helpful skill set, manipulating metabolism, no matter where you're at. If you're like, dude, I look great, I feel great, awesome. You need to learn this so you can keep it for the rest of your life because things will change. You get a family, more demanding job, Hex makes you wildly rich, and you want to go out to eat all the time and travel. This is the most invaluable skill set of all time. This will preserve your ability to maintain your health in a way that is backed by the numbers. So, and I'll get into the charting later. I just wanted to say that because no matter where your start point is in here in this chat watching us, this is going to allow you to move forward in a really, hopefully, exciting and meaningful way. And I know exercise is going to really get into the nitty gritty here and help you guys, if you don't know already, kind of the underpinnings of metabolism and how that stuff actually operates. So let's pass it along, my friend. Let's get into the fun stuff.
Very, very nice. So as you guys might recall, I love slides and I love shit like that.
Yes, you
I'm
do.
used to standing at the front of the classroom and telling you my thoughts. So these aren't going to be slides per se. I basically found a little tool a little fun free tool on the internet, and I just started typing some stuff up here while we were talking, just to really get to the basic of what metabolism references or what that term refers to. And all metabolism that term refers to is every single chemical reaction that's going on in your body. That's it, and that's all. To kind of break that down a little bit, you should know there are two reactions, two types, I guess. There's anabolic, you're probably familiar with that word, and there are catabolic reactions. So an anabolic reaction is one that builds or synthesizes, and a catabolic reaction is one that breaks down. And that's it. So there's always turnover in terms of building up and breaking down. When we're talking about, or at least in the fitness and like diet and nutrition world and the losing weight world, usually the term that people are actually referring to is bioenergetics. This is basically like a faction of your metabolism. And what bioenergetics refers to is just it's the process, ball caps there, Gage, process of, I mean, exercise, double docs, of converting food stuff into guess what? Energy, right?
Hmm.
So you're taking any sort of food stuff. Food stuff refers to any of the macronutrients or any of the places that you can actually get calories or energy from, and then turning that into ATP. That's the energy that your body is using. So there is a huge tie between when people are referencing metabolism and then uh, that big topic from episode number 1, the fundamentals of energy balance. And it relates
That was a
right
good
back
episode.
to energy in versus energy out. So if you remember, we created or I tried to draw a little bank with money going in and money going out, and kind of represented the fundamental idea that if you are withdrawing more money than you are depositing, which way will your bank account go? And that idea or that relationship is the exact same when it comes to your body weight, right? So if there is more energy going in than is going out, you will gain weight. If there is more energy going out than there is going in, you will lose weight. There was a comment on that video that that I pulled up last time that I really liked. It was spend your energy, not your hex, or something along those lines. I don't think
I
that was
remember that. That
perfectly
was a
it,
good
but
one.
spend your energy, save your hex, boys. So the only place that we can really get foodstuffs is through your pie hole, through your mouth. That's where all of the energy is coming in. And then we do have a few different ways. This again was an area we talked about in that first episode. There's kind of 4 different compartments or 4 different ways that you consume or you use energy or spend it. So one would be physical activity. I've just got a little legend down here for you. The thermic effect of food. So when you break down food, when you eat food, in order to break it down, you spend a little energy to extract more energy out. NEAT
Hmm.
is the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this would include things like tapping your fingers, tapping your feet, getting up to go to the fridge, things that aren't directly programmed in as physical activity or exercise. And then BMR is your basal metabolic rate. This is where this is the operations that are going on basically to keep you living. So your heart rate, your brain function, your breathing, your organ function, a lot of that stuff. And your metabolism is really, it can go up and it can go down as a function of all of these really, but mostly so as a function of these 3 things. Number 1, the thermic effect of food. In a this will probably be very intuitive for all of you. It would be natural that the amount of energy you use to break down food will go down if you consume less food. So a lot of people, when they're referencing um, a broken metabolism or a bad metabolism or a slow metabolism, well, naturally, your metabolism is going to fall into that category that they're creating as you eat less because you are breaking down less. And it is simple as that. Your metabolism will be slower if you eat less food.
It's
Plain and
very
simple.
adaptive, isn't it?
hmm
Very adaptive.
And it's not again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. There might be times when you want a very slow metabolism. A time I could think of is when you don't have a lot of food around.
Yeah,
So
like an ice age would be a good
hmm
one.
so your body is this it's an incredible machine. It's very interesting. Um, it's an incredible machine and it's extremely good at energy storage. That's one of its key goals or its fundamental goals. And it's really, really good at maintaining this level of homeostasis. So as we eat less, it's very, very natural. We will spend less food. Number one, just as a function of the energy cost to break down that food. Number two, and something that's really emerging in the research right now, or probably in like the last 5 years, is this non-energy activity thermogenesis. So the natural energy that you expend just in your day-to-day life, not via exercise or not via planned activity, it spontaneously decreases in individuals who are in like a relatively significant deficit. I
Yeah.
think the average number right now is between 20 to 30%. But so on average, we see less activity, less movement, right? Basically, less muscle contraction from individuals in a caloric deficit. And it's kind of just a natural phenomenon that's occurring. There's a whole bunch of theories out there as to why it might be occurring, but it looks like it's being driven by the body's intuition to preserve stores. Your body doesn't, your body's really, really smart. It's actually more of just a negative feedback system. So to call it smart, I think it's tough to say if it's smart. It's really, really good at what it accomplishes. And most of those things are done via a negative feedback loop. So your body doesn't necessarily know how much stores it has. It just knows that it wants to store. It is in a energy storage mindset. Might you say? So NEAT goes down spontaneously. So again, when you are eating less weight or you're in a deficit, this will further decrease your metabolism. And then BMR is a function of typically how much mass you have. So a combination of fat-free mass and fat mass, or muscle and non-muscle. And as that number goes down, so does your BMR. It's typically a function of size and surface area. Surface area is a big one because it has to do with heat loss and heat retention. So
That's
these,
interesting.
mhm,
That's actually an interesting one.
yeah. So mass definitely is one of the big categories, but surface
Huh.
area is one of the huge components of BMR as well. So and of course that is a function of total mass. So if you go
Yeah,
up, right, or you go down, you will be affecting surface area.
makes sense.
So again, once as we're decreasing food, decreasing activity, our BMR is also going down. So if you get into a significant deficit, you've got three major things here of the four ways that you're expending energy that are going down in sync with one another. So you will naturally see a decrease or a slower metabolism. It
Yep.
doesn't mean it's broken. That's actually the way it
It's
works.
supposed to work.
Yes, it is doing that on purpose to try to preserve energy. So there are a few different ways that it actually does that. Maybe I'll stop there for a minute, and maybe I'll look at some comments or talk to Ryan about that. Make sure all of that kind of like made sense and hit home. But that uh, right there, that little piece, I think is probably the simplest idea when or how I think about what metabolism is, kind of how it affects energy production or energy expenditure, and like what the different components of that are. So I'll stop right there before I move on, but I do have a few other, of course,
Yeah.
I'm a slides guy, so I've got a
No,
few
these are
other
great,
things
dude.
to show you and talk about here.
The only thing I would add on, because that was perfect, is like he said, guys, this is normal. This is all normal. This is supposed to happen. If you're trying to lose weight, it will eventually get to a point where it's so difficult to lose weight that you need to stop and do the process that happens after. That's normal. Everybody hits plateaus. This is part of your body's response system to create that. It does not like change. And you know, exercise can come in here after as well to kind of confirm that for me. But you know,
Hmm.
it's very adaptive to the inputs we're giving it. Think of it like a gas tank. You're going on a road trip. And eventually this gas tank's going to run out. And of course, it's annoying getting more gas, but that's part of the process. Just like this is part of the process. That's why you can never really compare someone else's weight loss to yours. You have genetics, fat-free mass, like all these things he just went through that do dictate how weight loss is going to be different, very different from person to person, but also where someone's BMR is at, their knee. All these things go into how effective or how long, et cetera, weight loss can go on for, just from a sheer numbers perspective, right? We're not even talking about the psychological and whether or not the person can actually stick to it from a sustainability standpoint. But the point being is All these are working against you from the get-go. That's why it's imperative to know how to create essentially a window of time where we can utilize weight loss with a BMR and all these things that make sense until it no longer makes sense, right? Exercise. Eventually, this will adapt so much that we can't really go any lower in calories and we can't really do any more activity levels. And you say, well, crap, like, where do I go from here? Right. And that's a tough conversation. And it's even more difficult and annoying and frustrating if you don't have the data and the tools to convey what's going on. That's where we'll get into the charting later, but that's where it's really eye-opening to give you guys clarity as to what's going on in the background of the process, right? It's like the price is going on in the chart, but you can't see any of the candlesticks. It's frustrating. Obviously, there's no story to tell. There's no reasoning. You can't really make an informed decision. So yeah, that was I loved your breakdown there on that. We could talk about, PA neat and all that stuff for the whole show, but we could probably keep it moving because there's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff to cover.
yeah, we could for sure spend a segment on each one of those, really. But what you
Yeah.
said and this comment here from Johnny definitely ties into this other thing that I had drawn up, um, regarding the actual metabolism itself. So just to break it down really quickly for you, one of the things Ryan said there was that you will get to a point where it seems like no matter how low of calorie content you're on, you're not going to lose weight. So the longer and more aggressive you stay in a deficit over on this left-hand side. So I tried to make this like a little pendulum, if you can imagine that. I drew a hex on here as my pendulum. Okay. So if you are in a deficit for a long period of time, ultimately your body will move towards some of these in particular adaptations that do lend towards a lower or a slower metabolism. Okay,
Hmm.
that also coincide with some of the things that were happening over here. If you're in a deficit, right? If you're in a
Absolutely.
surplus, right? If you're in a surplus, these would have gone up. TF, neat, actually a little bit more undecided. BMR up. But
For
here,
show.
so the majority of people are fighting to lose weight. And lots of them will go into a significant deficit and they'll lose a lot of weight really fast. In general, we don't have that big of an issue losing weight. The issue is finding a sustainable way to do it or keeping that weight off. Most people, they can, especially if they're severely overweight, can lose a lot of weight really fast. But what that leads to is it leads to this, what it, I'm just going to say yo-yo, not necessarily yo-yo dieting, but the yo-yo in their weight, because as you go into a deficit for longer and long periods of time, you move this away. Your pendulum swings over here. And what happens is your metabolic rate drops. One of the big things that happens that's an actual measurable objective difference is you are more efficient at extracting the energy from the food stuff. This is an extremely interesting effect that happens. Your hunger levels go up, your O2 consumption goes down. There is a multifaceted targeting of energy for fat storage, and this happens by using different substrates in different ways. So we've got fats, protein, and carbs as our big three. And
Hmm.
basically, your body will shift away from using certain substrates so we can store more shit. It's like, holy shit, guys, we are going down. We need to get back to homeostasis. This is the big thing that your body is really trying to maintain every single minute of every single day, right? It's
Hmm.
not smart. It's just really good at what it does. So if you're sitting over here in this extreme deficit for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, diet's over. I lost my 30, 40, 50 pounds, whatever it might be, and you swing over to a big surplus. Well, now you've created the adaptations that are necessary for storing a butt ton of energy, mainly via fat. And then you've increased the availability of that energy. So now your satiety signals are down while your hunger is up. Your ability to dissipate excess fat is down because your body isn't being encouraged to store it. You're
Hmm.
actually starting to produce
That's probably a really
additional
good
fat
point.
cells, and there's increased fat deposition. So this is kind of the back and forth that happens with metabolism that can make it really difficult to keep the weight off, is because people will enter a diet phase and be like, "Hey, my diet's over," and then they try to go back to regular everyday life, and it leads to a terrible environment for keeping the weight
Yeah,
off. It
100%.
makes it extremely difficult. So, um, my angle on metabolism, not to say that it doesn't matter. I just try to combat the idea that, hey, I have a bad metabolism, so I cannot lose weight. and I do not agree with that statement. You might have a slower metabolism than you could, but it's something like your metabolism is working. If you're standing on your 2 feet, you have the tools to do a lot of this stuff, unless there's some sort of scenario that might be unbeknownst to us. If your body is keeping you currently in homeostasis, it's running and operating as it should be, and trust me, you can do things to get to the point where you might want to be or where you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, your metabolism is basically where it's at right now. Where you're wondering, like, hey, I wonder where mine's at. Why is it at where it's at right now? Well, it's at where it's at right now based on all the years prior, right? Your nutritional intake, how active you've been, all of those things, right? So look back to all your years and all the things you've gone through. It's at where it's at right now because of all those things, and that's
Mhm.
it, right? It's very adaptive. It's at where it's at right now, and that's your start point, and that's huge. I think your main point on the ability to dissipate excess fat, that's a huge one. People forget, and this goes into the structure episode we have, why it's so important to structure weight loss properly and not really cut it off typically right before a time where it's going to be dicey with eating higher calorie foods, because you're not giving yourself enough leeway time to exit that weight loss phase without risking putting on all that weight. Because when your body's in a deficit for such a long period of time, it is very susceptible, like you said, to putting on body fat quickly if a surplus is given to it quickly,
Mhm.
right? It's very, very apt at putting that body fat back on, and at a rate much quicker than it took off in the first place, which is incredibly frustrating. You lose 10 pounds and you work your ass off for 2 months, and then it comes back on in 2 weeks. That's
Mhm.
frustrating. Not
Yep.
to mention that's where the statistic comes from, with most people do gain back not only what they lost, but more so than that, because it's
Yep.
not linear, folks. This is not linear. Weight loss doesn't happen linearly to weight gain, not at all. It's look at the percentages. If you're in
Mhm.
a let's say a 20% deficit, and then you put yourself in 100% surplus right after, which is easy to do without thinking about it,
Mhm.
that's where some serious damage can happen. And not being able to really just go through this stuff and be exposed to the data, understand how to manage it, is powerful. But what he's putting here in the chart in visual form is fantastic, because obviously we can manipulate this in somewhere in the middle or all the way to the left, right? Typically surpluses are really only for people looking to put on, muscle mass, typically athletes or what have you. But outside of that, most people are looking to be in a deficit or homeostasis in some capacity. It's very, very pinpointed, right? Typically for a surplus, if you're really doing it on purpose. But yeah, this is a really great visual, man. I thought
Mhm.
thought this looked really, really great.
Cool. Yeah, so in general, like if you wanted to go into a deficit, I think the way both Ryan or I would suggest you do it is to just move this pendulum a little bit to the left. Like we don't want you going 1,000, 1,500 calorie deficits, right? Usually, like we'd recommend come here for a little bit and come back to maintenance. If you want to gain, sure, come here for a little bit, come back to maintenance, right?
Yep.
And eventually, especially as you accrue body mass and then a different body composition, then you can have some real effects on what's happening here, which would lead to the real effect on quote unquote speeding up your metabolism. That's the big hot buzzword. There's no trick or no fanciness to it. One of the ways would be to move more, right? Or to like technically you could speed it up by eating more, right?
Yeah.
The more food I eat, well, guess what?
Doesn't sound sexy when you word it like
Right?
that, though,
The
does it?
more food I digest, it doesn't mean you're gonna lose weight. It just means your metabolism will speed up by function of putting more food into your
Mhm.
system. So yeah, it's such an infuriating friggin' industry because it's like, fuck guys, no, stop it. That's not what.
I heard if you buy
Damn it.
hacks, it increases metabolism by 500 kcals a day. A day. If you buy more hacks.
If you
Staking
yeah,
it for
so there you go.
5,555 improves it by an extra 1,000 kcals a day. So guys, if you're stuck at like hard stuck at 1,500 calories a day and you want to get this shit up to like 3,000 a day, you just go buy and stake some more hacks, and things
Yeah,
are gonna be Gucci.
yeah. Like
No, the
every
buzzwords are bad, man. The buzzwords are bad, and that's really where like
and it's
when.
always yeah,
Sorry,
sorry,
keep
go
going.
ahead. And it's always like dumb, like like I'm sorry if you've seen some of these and be like, oh, that's a good idea. It's usually like dumb shit that it's like drink some green tea or what's another really popular one I see. They'll have like a list of things to do to speed up your metabolism.
Dude, we could do a whole long list of the
right?
predatory
Well,
MLMs if you want.
yeah,
I mean,
one of
you
the
guys could just Google it. There's a
yeah, and
lot.
one of the things that could be added to the list is eat more. Guess what? That's not going to help you lose weight, right? It still relies on this balance, this relationship between energy in and energy out, and metabolism is just a function of what's happening here. So there's no real, like, anytime you see a shortcut or a trick, oftentimes
Oh,
it's somebody at the end. There's somebody at the other end of the on the other end of the line trying to sell you something, or trying to do something for profit
yeah.
in some sense.
Yeah, that's a it's such a now the buzzwords are crazy because in my opinion, showing somebody how to do this simply, like keep it as simple as possible. How do we build our metabolism, right? And do it simply without any nonsense. Hold on, guys. My cat is very curious right now. So how do we teach someone how to just manage this simply, build up their metabolism? And to me, that's the most sexy part is we want to be able to enjoy our time culturally, right? Whether it be going out to dinner with friends, spending time with family, and not have to worry as much about gaining weight, of course, right? It's like budgeting. You want to be able to go out and spend money, but you don't want to spend too much. Well, the thing with food is we can kind of manipulate that, unlike income, which is kind of a set thing. Um, and more black and white. But with this, you can kind of manipulate it to better allow you to exist in culture, right? So even if
Hmm.
it's not for weight loss and you're like, hey, if I'm eating 1,600 calories a day on average, and then you spend a month at your in-laws and they're eating 3,000 calories a day, that's a big deal, right? And
Hmm.
our awareness on that is important because if you were to all of a sudden start spending 10 grand a month versus 5 grand and you don't have the income to support that, you're going to hit a red bank account number at some point and you're going to have to pay attention to it. Of course, health is a little different, but yeah, it's to me
Yeah.
it's the most sexy part about this. You get to eat more food and still maintain overall health for the most part, right? There's caveats as there is with everything.
Yeah. Big time. We just got a comment about BMR here from Bitfinesse. If your BMR adjusts as you become lighter, would you say using BMR calculations to determine caloric needs become less effective? Or is using calculated BMR using your new weight just as effective?
Oh,
Um,
that's a good one. I'm curious
yeah,
to hear your take on
really,
this.
really good question. So Bitfinesse is referencing, so as you become lighter, so lower mass, your BMR will naturally go down. In general, there might be a very unique situation. Uh, it would have to do with your body composition hugely, but in general, that's a
Sure.
really, really good or correct statement. Would you say BMR calculations become less effective? Um, I would always call the BMR calculators or the calculations probably a little bit off. They're decent. They're always good starting points. So when
Yep,
you
you nailed
say
it.
as you become lighter, using the BMR calculation, does it become less effective? I think it's probably about the same as before. And it's probably, again, for some people, it might be bang on. For some people, it might be 10, 15, 20% off. So I would just use it as your starting place, or even use wherever you were at before as your starting place and move along with whichever way you're going. So if you're losing weight, you could probably be pretty confident that your BMR is going down and that your calories or your calorie intake, if you wanted to maintain, should be going down as well. Um, or is using calculated BMR just as effective? So yeah, my answer to that is that using a BMR calculator to try to determine like maintenance BMR calories are okay. I think they're a great starting place, but
Mhm.
they can be very um, inaccurate. They also can be accurate. We don't really know. The best ones will take into account a whole bunch of stuff, including like some stuff that you might not be able to measure on your own. So you could find anyone on the internet, and it's probably decent. Like it'll most likely for the average person get you within 10%, uh, but not guaranteed, right? So
Yeah.
so maybe I don't know if I can answer that the way you asked it, but my take on that is it's a good estimate, but your values will almost always differ from that estimate, if that makes sense. It-
My answer is the same but different. So
mm,
the perfect thing that Hexercise just said there for Bit Finesse, bro. Start point. After that, honestly, in my opinion, it's really pointless. And I say that from experience because, and not only with myself, but a lot of other people, Metabolic adaptation is a big deal, right? So I am 145 pounds right now, and I'll probably show you guys my chart here in a bit. But the point is right now I'm eating close to 2,600 calories a day and not gaining weight. And a short 3 weeks ago, 3 to 4 weeks ago, I was eating 18 to 1,900 calories a day, and I was struggling to lose weight. Right? Calculators are not going to pick that up. When I put my info into something, I'm 5'11", 145 pounds, and I'm reverse dieting and I'm eating 3,000 calories a day and not gaining weight, your calculator is not going to pull that up. Not at all. Like that's why exercise made the best point ever, in my opinion, of it's a good start point. After that, the only real data that is going to give you beneficial analysis are honestly weigh-ins to see trajectory and travel of weigh-ins. You know, are you in a deficit or are you in a surplus? Because after the start point, you just need to see what happens, you know, because this is not a game where you want to make changes all the time and just change calorie counts and all that stuff. This is typically something you don't make changes for many weeks in a row, and you look for the pattern, you look for the trend, right? Like with charting. So to really emphasize exercise's answer again, start point, yeah, sure. I used one 7 years ago. After that, it's really been, hey, am I gaining weight? Am I losing weight? What's the pacing of said weight loss or weight gain? Or am I at homeostasis? And what's the calorie count and activity levels, right? Those things we talked about, right? You know, your NEAT activity levels, your just physical activity levels, and then your calorie count, manipulating those based on right lifestyle, the psychology of food, all this stuff in a way that makes sense. And then you can make an informed decision, you know, because I think you're going to get frustrated always trying to chase this with a calculator. Screw the calculator. Let just
Mm-hmm.
the actual numbers dictate your decision making moving forward. Maybe it's a good time to show my chart potentially.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Cool. So yeah, guys, this is just what I use for myself, right? This is kind of like, think of it like the bank account, but for overall health, right? Just good to keep a pulse on your overall health, whether it be, you know, weight gain, weight loss, if you're just trying to maintain weight and understanding kind of where you're at, you know, metabolically. And I say it as in the things we can control, right? Genetically, we can't control things, but you know, I'm not going to get into reverse dieting or anything quite yet, because I know exercise has some other slides, but understanding that, you know, myself over here in this section, hold on, let me get my mouse over here. So in this section over here, where you see me gaining weight during a bulk phase, you know, if I were to put my stats back in at 160 at 5'11", a calculator would think I would, you know, that there's no way in hell I'm eating almost 4,000 calories a day, which I was at that point, you know, which is based on, like exercise said, number of factors. But the point is these things can be wildly inaccurate. And as you can see over here to the bottom, notice how I'm starting to flatline right around 144 as I'm increasing calories. So the whole point is over the next 4 to 5 weeks, I'm slowly increasing my caloric intake, but at a pace that's slow enough that BMR is essentially catching up to it, right? When you take into everything into the equation. And the beautiful thing about that is it allows me to once again kind of exist within reason, right? There's diminishing returns, but the point, like I can't get to 10,000 calories a day, for example, and just get away with it. But, you know, when I have most of my clients who are females age 40 to 60 able to eat 2,700 calories a day and not gain weight, it shows me that most people can eat much more than they think if it makes sense for them in their lifestyle, which also helps them create a more beneficial weight loss phase too. Because now you're being able to purchase more weight loss, if you will, with a 2,700 calorie intake versus a 2,000 calorie intake, and likely, you know, create weight loss in a calorie range that makes sense for your lifestyle too, especially if you're in America. So the point being is, hopefully we're not hitting this question too hard. You know, this is really all that matters once you get that start point. After that, you'll never use a calculator again. They're great. And my
Mm-hmm.
buddy actually created one, a quicktdee.com. And it's a really good one. They all use their own methodology to doing it. But after that, the actual data, whether it be weigh-ins,
Mm-hmm.
you could use the way your clothes fit and measurements. I don't think they're going to be as ideal. I think the real pain point is being able to get comfortable with the scale and understanding it as a tool. You know, that could be its own whole episode in and of itself. But yeah, this
Yeah.
is just to show you guys that, like, this is how I know what's going on. And this is how I also can create a situation where, hey, if I want to get Thai food for a few months in a row with my girlfriend, I can create that scenario where I don't have to gain 20 pounds to go out and get, you know, fried rice, mango sticky rice, all the good stuff, you know? So yeah, that's my answer. Basically a replication of what you said. Essentially just a little
Yeah.
bit more on the emphasis on data side after the fact.
Yeah. No, I love that a lot. If you are personally like in control or in possession of the amount of data like Ryan has shown here, then you have the most accurate estimation of your BMR, and you could distill it from this data. So if you're
Yeah.
doing that, you don't like, it looks like, I'm not sure if you're weighing in every single day here, Ryan, but you could weigh in weekly and you could create a wicked like amount of data to
Yeah.
give you
This is daily.
great guesses.
I'm not gonna get too far because as you like we said, like this would
Hmm.
be his own episode, and everybody's
Hmm.
so unique with their current relationship with these tools, right?
Yeah.
The scale measurements, etc. So we're not talking about the psychology of any of this stuff, right? That could be its own whole episode. If you guys want something like that,
Yeah.
request it because we haven't done it yet, but it could be literally like 3 episodes worth. But the
Yeah.
point being is, assuming somebody is totally fine with weighing themselves,
Yeah.
right? This is daily, right? I've gotten
Hmm.
very used to doing this. I've weighed myself every day for 7 years, and I think of it like brushing my teeth. I just do it. I
Nice.
don't think about it. And I take the average because, in my opinion, about 80% of the time, think of it like your SMA, right? A slow moving average on the chart. It's a general trend. That's
Hmm.
it, a general trend. And for the most part, it's pretty accurate. There will be outlier weeks. But when I see people do weekly or bi-weekly,
Hmm.
there is such a high chance that, if it's a female, for example, because they do have
Yeah.
weight loss much more difficult than guys, they could weigh in on a day that's their cycle has hit. They had higher sodium the night prior. They were stressed. They
Yeah.
woke up earlier in the day. They had a bigger meal late at night, and boom, they're up 4 pounds and they're freaking the hell out. They don't know why. And there's no other historical information
Yeah.
to look back on to make sense of it. It's like the bank account. You have all these little baby transactions. We don't stare at every single one of them, but we articulate what matters, right? The macro analysis.
Hmm.
So, yeah, this is daily to get the weekly averages. I've seen that about 70 to 80% of the time you get really good data. And there's a good, out of every 10 weeks, there's probably 2 weeks that it's a little bit of a shit show
Mm.
with the
Cool.
weigh-ins.
Yeah. This ultimately, like, I think one day we'll probably, like, if you create a template like this, like, you guys will have the tools needed,
Yeah, we should get a hex themed health chart. I
little
would love to
template
make
or
that.
something. And then like, you can like weight, to keep in mind, your weight is a lagging indicator, but you will have like your pulse on the market in terms of your daily weigh-ins in line with like your energy in, your calories, and
Yeah.
you will be able to manipulate it so it will do what you want it to do. If you add to protein, carbs, fat, you can make your trend lines go up. If you pull away from those, you can make those trend lines go down. So you get to kind of be the master of the market as you learn these things. And then it becomes very intuitive and natural, especially if you know numbers and charting and things like that. So
Yeah,
yeah, really,
absolutely.
really cool example. Yeah, so RG3 made a comment back here when I was talking about those some of those buzzwords. Yeah,
Apple
so
cider vinegar
uh, come
is funny.
and subscribe to my paid group. I'll tell you the 3 hacks to increase your metabolism. 1,
Yeah,
green tea.
you're not going to see that
2,
here.
apple cider
Mm-mm.
vinegar. 3, uh, friggin' what? Sun your Tate. There's some crazy taint. That's what I meant to say. There's some crazy guys out there that are like sunning their buttholes and doing crazy shit, man. They're like,
Dude, there's a comment in
trust
there
me,
from there's a comment from COTG about getting rid of man tits, and he said
oh
Richard wanted me to ask you guys, dude, I would love nothing more than to get Richard on and have him be able to show him charting as he obviously can understand, and have him eat the Louis Vuitton cakes, right? And still manage that into his overall nutritional intake and
yeah,
drop body fat effectively and make best use of his time to be more effective and to
yeah,
keep it. I would love nothing more than that because we all love Richard, man. I'm sure he was just joking with that comment, but man, like,
yeah.
dude, that I feel like that'd be really exciting. And he may already know that, to be honest with you. Sometimes it's just a psychological thing and executing on it because this shit is difficult, right? There's layers
Hmm.
to this. It's not just the numbers, of course. We talk about numbers a lot, and obviously Hexicans love numbers for obvious reasons, but that's why this show really goes into the psychology too. And if you haven't seen our first few episodes, definitely give them a look.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, some practical tips to increase BMR that you can work in easily to a busy routine slash lack of sleep. So, as I think you guys know, if you, especially if you've watched some of the earlier episodes, your energy out, majority of it is affected by BMR. But you personally can't really directly affect BMR. You can do multiple things that can eventually lead to a situation that can increase BMR, if that makes sense. So I can, if I create a body composition, a favorable body composition. So in particular, if I have more muscle mass on me, my basal metabolic rate will be higher relative to somebody of the same weight with less muscle mass. So any like direct tips to increase BMR, it's really, really tough to be like, hey, like snap your fingers or do an in particular thing to
yeah,
increase BMR. The big thing that affect, like, there's lots of ongoing activities that lend to or affect BMR, but it's not like I have a specific like thing that you could do each day to affect it, right? This
Yeah.
is going to be a resultant number or an outcome as a result of whatever you're doing day in and day out. So really the big ones that you can affect are your NEAT. So if you're making sure that you're getting the daily number of steps, or like you're not just like sitting down for 8 hours at a time in front of a computer. So making sure like you're actually still kind of like getting up and moving around. So again, that's a really interesting area of research going on right now, and people are trying to combat these long periods of sedentary bouts. And then the other two that you can affect in a massive way are the thermic effect of food and your physical
Yep.
activity.
Yep.
So I don't have a quick tip to tell you to increase BMR, and it is the biggest component of your energy
Putting
expenditure.
on muscle.
Yeah, put on muscle, which is a pretty
Yeah,
long process. I
that's a
can't.
difficult one.
Yeah. So these other three are definitely ways that you can manipulate a little easier, and
Yeah.
kind of and a way to go about that in order to affect your daily energy expenditure.
I could give him one quick tip. I'll just touch on it briefly. If you swap
Sure.
back to the chart real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I did kind of say I was going to get into this for him real quick. Who was this that asked the question? Oh, Crypto Class. Yeah. All right. So yeah, dude, going back to the chart here, like I just got out of a weight loss phase myself and actually stopped it early because of a number of different reasons that happen. As we talked about in our one show, structure is so important and things can come in, right? Job change, passing in the family, et cetera. Things can come in that make you have to adapt and be flexible. But the point being is, like we talked about earlier, you don't want to swing the pendulum too far and go right to a surplus, or just say F it and stop caring, because that's typically where the higher calorie counts come in without realizing it, you know? And the beautiful thing is people hate weigh-ins when you're losing weight because they can be sometimes so non-linear. That's why the averages are important, et cetera. But when it
Mhm.
comes to doing something like a reverse diet or gradually easing calories back into your diet till we get to very high levels, weigh-ins become very linear. The scale is actually a really fun tool to use from like a trusting standpoint. We're building trust in it and conviction in it that it's actually, doing what it needs to do. And the beautiful thing is you can see in the purple here, the dark purple, and I'm going to put this dark purple too. So every Tuesday, every 7 days or so, right? I do a cadence of about 7 to 10 days based on what my averages are doing. But to directly answer your question, the best way to increase your BMR is make sure you have an understanding what your weigh-ins are doing. Because if you're gaining weight, you're doing this
Mhm.
too quickly, and you are increasing your BMR, but the byproduct is also you're putting on body fat, which is no bueno, right? For the most part. So being able to increase, this is there's varying opinions on this, but I like to do anywhere from 140 to 200 calories per week, depending on the person, how active they are, and the psychology going behind this. For example, I do 200 calories per week, which is a little bit more on the aggressive side, but I also slightly increase my NEAT, as exercise was talking about. I slightly increase my NEAT because I'm okay with the trade-off of getting more food and being just slightly more active, maybe an extra walker day or something like that. And the point is what you should see is very linear, flat weigh-ins. The averages should not be going up. They should be within, plus or minus a pound or so in the average. And it shows you that the scale could be very linear. You're
Mhm.
increasing your calories, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, 6 weeks goes by. And instead of eating 1,600 calories a day, which may be where you're at now, you're now at 2,200 calories a day. Or if you're already at 2,000 calories a day, you may be at 27, 2,800. Now, once again, there are diminishing returns on this. But what I can tell you with absolute certainty is if I have female clients who are not bodybuilders, who are 45 to 65 years of age, who have not that much muscle on them and are eating anywhere from 25 to 3,000 calories a day without gaining weight, that basically, for the most part, you'd have to have some serious pre-existing health conditions to not be able to do this effectively. Even my clients with PCOS or inactive thyroid are able to do this when medicated properly. So the point being is get an understanding of the data, expose yourself to it in a way you're comfortable with so you know what's going on. Then from there, get excited and manipulate the calories to your liking. And I think you'll be very surprised as to what you kind of create from a metabolic perspective. And it does open up the window, because then you're like, hey, I don't always need to eat 3,000 calories a day, but if I do want to make improvements, now you can create a deficit that's pretty effective and not have to go
Mhm.
to super low calorie counts to create it too. So it does kind of give you that window of opportunity versus the example I gave earlier in the stream, where if someone comes to me and they're eating 1,200 calories a day and they're stuck at weight loss and they're at homeostasis down at a very low level, they're kind of shit out of luck. Their gas tank's empty. They need to do what we're talking about. And
Mhm.
hopefully in a way that is conducive to not regaining that body fat back. That's why pacing is so important. And you can't really know what's going on with pacing with the calculators, and you can't know what's going on with it if you don't have the data. So that's why it always comes back to this. So that's what I would recommend, man. Cadence 7 to 10 days, increasing calories slowly, and seeing how things go. But the data won't lie to you. It'll be your best friend.
Yeah, great take, man. Yeah, so here's that comment that you mentioned. Any tips on getting rid of the man tits? And there's a pretty good one. Pretty good response here.
Wow.
Milk them often.
RG3 in the house tonight, baby.
Empty those suckers out. Um,
We got a lot of comments here right now.
Pixine,
I'm trying to get caught up.
another one. Here, so yeah, when we're talking about trying to make sure, especially when you're in a deficit, just being aware that your non-exercise activity kind of naturally goes down. If you're aware of that and tracking that, that is a great way to combat that. So setting a daily goal like this, 8,000 to 10,000 as a goal is an awesome goal to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Steps are great, guys. The good thing about steps, and which is why I start with them with a majority of clients, is because they're super low impact, right?
Hmm.
We're not going out and doing crazy, squats or compound based movements, which are great, but not everybody has the limb lengths to support them in all sorts of variations. And people may have injuries, pre-existing injuries, current injuries. So the point is like steps are a really good start point, and it is something that's easily workable. And let's be honest, a really difficult cultural environment right now with what's going on in the world. So being able to go to the gym all the time is not really something that has ever worked. Well, let's be honest, that shit has never really been something someone's going to consistently do their whole life, but it's certainly not the case now.
Hmm.
Certainly not the case now. So steps are just such a great way to just get started, or at least tracking. Cause like I know if I'm getting 10,000 steps, or if someone's getting 20,000 steps, because people over rely on steps. I'll go to the flip side. If someone over relies on steps and is getting like 20,000 a day, and then something changes where they have to stop that, that's a big energy imbalance that's happening, right? That's a big deal, right? So your body's going to see that decrease, right? And that neat cardio coming in. So that's a big deal too. So just being aware, like exercise said, of these things is so important.
Hmm.
Just from like an awareness point of view, just like our bank accounts with budgeting, just in a macro analysis, right? Take the data as much as you can to get accuracy, but look at it from a macro perspective to get a true idea of the trend. Exercising in tiny increments is great for progress. Yeah. I mean, just kind of goes into, what works. I will say all that stuff falls flat if nutrition isn't there from like, and this is on our previous stream, exercise went into just how much of the equation is created by, energy balance as it pertains to BMR and some of those other factors. It is 80% straight up. So, the phrase, you can't outwork a bad diet. Like it's not even that, you can't outwork bad energy balance. That's what we really are meaning. So that's all great, but the structural stuff, the nutrition, is where I would start first for everybody in
Hmm.
here. I don't care how active you are. I don't care how much you like going to the gym. You could get hit by a car tomorrow and you're stuck on the couch. What do you do? Do you
Hmm.
know what to do? Do you know how to track this stuff? Do you know how to make sense of it? Do you know how to adapt and be flexible and malleable to incoming situations? I hope everybody here is super active their whole lives,
Yeah.
but I don't know. The gym just got closed for like a year and a half here in Texas. To me, that's a pretty big deal. A lot of people's energy balance equations just changed a lot,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like I told people in the past, you could get injured, but now it's like, shit, we could get shut down or whatever. You don't know. Food is going to be there until the day you die,
Yeah.
not some of these movements. And I'm someone who loves these movements, but you got
Yeah.
to keep a balanced head about this stuff.
Yeah. I was just talking to Ryan before the stream, and I haven't had a gym membership for, I think it's over a year now. I'm in Canada, so it's been a bit of a shit show. Even when I had a gym membership, Bitfinesse, this is one of my favorite um, strategies for building up some volume to get stronger, especially in things like push-ups and pull-ups. But if it's a way for you that's effective for adding in some neat or just overall physical activity, I
You there, buddy? I think you just cut out. Okay, well, exercise looks like he is cut out. I will continue on. Oh,
did I
are
ru-
you back, buddy? Okay, you're
yeah,
back. Nice.
rugged. Yeah, I think it's such a great strategy for accumulating physical activity and getting better at whatever that movement is. So I was really bad at pull-ups for a long time, and I just started uh, programming them in literally like every couple hours around my house. And now without the gym membership, that's pretty much what I do. Sometimes I'll have like a dedicated session, I guess. I've got like very, very minimal weights, but yeah, I absolutely love that strategy.
Yeah, we got a lot of good comments here. I see COTG said he was kind of serious about the man
Oh, was
tits
he?
tip. Yeah, I'll say this, COTG, the best thing you can do, man, is if you have any form of resistance training for obviously your chest, but in general, you don't want to just train one spot, but really dropping body fat is the best way to do it. Hormonally, you're going to be a better spot, more testosterone, more muscle development. Like people forget, it's not really about what you weigh for the most part. It is, but only to a certain extent. Body fat percentage really helps give somebody shape and that look that you're kind of going for versus always just size. You know, someone with more muscle will look better objectively at a higher body fat percentage. But at the end of the day, if you're like, hey, I don't like the way this looks or this looks, you know, typically going down lower in body fat, and we talked about BMI versus body fat last stream. That was a good one. But the point is I would recommend looking at a body fat percentage chart for males and also separate if you're a female to kind of see what range you could potentially want to fall in, right? Totally outside of overall health, right? Because there's a large range for overall health to be maintained, but for your preference and how you kind of want to look and feel, and then kind of create a plan that makes sense for you, right? To help kind of achieve that. But that'd be it. And I do it through nutrition, man. You know, you can do all the push-ups in the world. It's not going to matter if you're still in a surplus. It's really not.
Yeah.
So I would definitely start there for sure.
Yep. 100% agree. There's no such thing as spot reduction. Like so I think Ryan alluded to this, is that like if you increase your muscle mass, so if you increase the size of your pecs, like your chest will look better with that same relative amount of fat. But if you wanted to lose the fat in that area, it's really just going to come down to losing weight overall, and there's no way to specifically target that fat in a natural way. So outside of like any sort of weird conditions, like maybe look into if it's really, really bad and extremely stubborn and you've lost weight and you've got down to like a body fat percentage that's like pretty low or like pretty normal, then maybe look into it a bit more seriously, like a gyno. Gyno's, it's not super popular, but it's not like also the rarest condition in the world. So things like that can happen. But in general, yeah, create a plan uh, and up physical activity or create some sort of environment where you're in some sort of deficit, losing slowly but surely over time, and eventually you will lose the fat or lose some fat from that area for sure.
Just reading through the comments.
Pretty much any way that you can up physical activity will affect like that energy output. So if you like jujitsu, I think both of us would always encourage you to do the things that you like. And
100%.
I've moved towards a much more what I think is a more sustainable outlook, in which I try to just incorporate some sort of like activity of daily living or sport or activity to help get that up, as opposed to, hey, you need to go spend this much time in a gym or on a treadmill. For some people, that's it's obviously a great tool, but programming in things like this that you like to do or that you enjoy doing with a friend or by yourself or however are, again, awesome strategies that will have long-lasting effects, or they'll continue into your later years in life as well, typically.
Yeah, he's spot on with that, guys. If you enjoy something, you're more apt to stick with it. You know, I tell people like, hey, if the gym does go away, then I'll probably find myself at a trampoline park because I like doing flips and shit. And I would love to get into like, you know, just gymnastics kind of movements because it's just fun. Like that's it, you know.
Yeah.
And that would be it. Like because I would do it. Go figure. Like the one question I ask people when they get into this stuff is like, hey, you're going to the gym all the time. You're doing this. Do you even like that? And like 60% of the time, people are like, no, I fucking hate it. And I'm just like, well, you know, there's plenty of other ways we can create body composition improvements without having to do any of this stuff. So yeah, stick with what you enjoy, guys. Don't overcomplicate that aspect of it. Sustainability is really, as the first stream, is really what's going to keep you going long term.
Yeah, 100%. We got Sammy here. We got someone giving us the ticker, I think. The ticker of the hex price.
17-18 cent range. Been sitting there for a hot minute. Got a good question from Sammy below though.
Next one that I see there.
Yeah, I've been going to the gym. What's the best machine for abs? My abs look more like kebabs. We should both answer this because I'm curious to hear your approach on it. But
sure.
dropping body fat is the best way to visually show abs from a looks perspective. For development of the muscle group, because it's very, it's a muscle like a lot of other muscles on your body, that machine, rep ranges, progressive overload, all the stuff that we haven't really touched on yet in terms of actually training is the most beneficial way to do it. But once again, all that really pertains to diet and being in a deficit or not, and tracking, all this stuff that we're talking about, because I see people all the time on ab equipment. And of course, if they're not dropping body fat, they will never really truly achieve the look that they're really going for. That's what we're really looking for here. If you improve your strength and maybe put on a little bit of muscle in your abdomen region, that's great. But is that really what you're here for? Right? You got to kind of analyze what you're actually looking to do. And if it's both of those things, great. But without the nutrition portion of it figured out and the data and all this stuff we're going over, then I don't want to say you're going to be wasting your time, but it's kind of like going to a job and not getting a paycheck. It gets very frustrating very quickly, right? Because we're putting in work, we're making small sacrifices for this. We want to see our efforts being repaid to us. So I would recommend doing the nutrition first, like Exercise did. And I think it was our second stream, man, going into 80% of this really being the energy balance portion of it and taking up that much of the equation. So I would start, as always, I mean, I feel like we're always going to default to this, but start with nutritional, and diet balance and energy balance and things we're talking about, because, people can have great abs, quoting here, great abs, but not ever train abs. They could look good and they could have maybe a decently solid core. I mean, I know a lot of bodybuilders professionally that honestly typically don't train abs because they don't want them to get larger from like the sheer aesthetics portion of it. They just want them to look lean. So to each their own, but that would be my recommendation for you. So that way you're not spending a whole lot of time that's not necessary on those machines.
Yeah. If I was going to, I don't think there was a single thing said there that I would disagree with. If I'm going to like try to directly answer which machine is best, I would just say whichever one you like the best. Most gyms will have like probably a section with some ab machines. They're pretty rare, so you'll probably only see like 2 or 3 in like a normal gym. There'll be machines for a whole bunch of other stuff. My favorite exercise to do, it was like a cable crunch where you basically use like one of the cables in the fuck are those, like one on the pulley, and then you kind of like grab it over top of your head, and then you do a crunch down, like bringing your elbows to your knees. So that was one of my like favorite, I guess, like weighted ab exercises to do. But yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what Ryan said here, is that if you've trained for a decent amount of time, like your abs will probably be quite significantly developed. And in a very similar fashion to the last question we had, there's no real way to go about spot reducing a certain area to make it look better. So as your abs get more and more developed, like relatively, like if they're a larger muscle, like relatively they'll look better with the same amount of fat. But if the goal is to make them look a little more visible, then yeah, the number one place that we need to target is like the overall composition.
100%.
Right?
Yeah,
Because
dude.
your abs get hit in so many different exercises.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're honestly usually like not, you really don't need to dedicate training to them.
People hate it
Depends,
when I say that too.
right?
They
It
hate it,
depends.
man.
It kind of depends on the individual,
Sure.
what they want, what their goals are, and what their program looks like. But
Yeah.
you really don't need it. And like there's so many different ones that you can program in. It's like if you like doing them, let's go
Yeah.
ahead and program them in. But if you dislike doing them, there's so many like really big, effective, like high hitting compound movements that do hit
Yeah.
them.
Squats, deadlifts. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of them are huge on core, and you need a strong core, which comes
hmm
with doing them to perform them well.
big
So,
time.
but to really piggyback on what you said too, like if someone's in a weight range, it's not conducive to do potentially like planks or like hanging leg raises, right? Some of these crazier movements. Sometimes the crunch machine works great. I mean, I've used it before.
Hmm
Like it may not be the most important thing on the planet, but like honestly, like we're not trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger here. We're not trying to operate on a professional bodybuilder's wavelength. Nobody is.
hmm
Nobody is. But people think they need to do that in order to create some of these changes we're talking about. So hopefully over time we can shift people's mindsets to really knowing like, hey guys, once again, I know it's not the sexy answer, but 80% of this is the food. It's probably going to piss you off even more when we say, hey, honestly, don't train them. It's kind of not going to probably be your best use of your time and not needed. They'll probably look just great and no
hmm
spot fat treatment. So if you lose 20 pounds and they're still not there, you just got to keep going. I don't, being exercise could never say, we may be able to give estimates. Body fat percentage and body composition is a tricky thing based on the person, their height and weight and genetics. But, with me, for example, my arms and my back come in first for leanness, right? I'll lose weight. My arms will look like they're 8% body fat, but my stomach still has 5 more pounds to go. It's not a linear fashion. That could be its whole other episode, right? It's not a linear fashion in how we drop body fat. That's, from my understanding, exercise can correct me if I'm wrong, particularly a genetics thing, right? The way it came on will be the way it came off, typically from an order of operation standpoint. So it is frustrating. Typically, upper legs, I think, in your abdomen are the last places to go typically. But I had a friend in the past. He actually was commenting on our last stream. Dude, he's got a full 6-pack, even though his back is like nowhere near dialed in. Full 6-pack though. Like, he gets so lucky. He's like, man, I don't even care about my back. I just need my abs here. I'm just like, whatever, dude. Like that's great. That's just great, dude. And I'm over here like, great. I have another 5 pounds to lose because areas I don't even give a shit about come in, like my back. Like, nobody cares. I don't care. But I digress. Hopefully that helps you, Sammy.
Yeah. RG3 going live. I'm not sure where he's going live, but as soon as we're
I saw him
done
post
here,
on Twitter.
we'll
probably
go
wrap ours up soon. We don't
go figure out where he's at, and we'll send you over his way.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
Any final questions before we log off here?
Yeah, good to see you. Completion fails. Thanks for coming in. Check liver function. Go to family doctor. Pretty sound advice, I would say there. Get Hex. Today we were mainly chatting about metabolism and like some of the buzzwords used around metabolism or some of the common complaints or common critiques of metabolism, and trying to break down really, really what it was and then what it is that makes or that composes metabolism and what you can actually do to affect it was the main thing we talked about.
And that's with no working out at all. Not like nothing. We're talking if someone just literally just walking around and being a human being, all the charting, everything we talked about still applies. We just recently had a couple people had questions about movement, about movements with the gym.
Yeah. Discourse Syndicate. Abs are made in the kitchen. Absolutely. There is. So yeah, Ryan's referring to what episode was that, Ryan? Number 1? The fundamentals, or was it the
I think it was 1. I think it was 1.
Right. So this
This is our third
breakdown,
one.
when we were talking about the different sources of using energy or spending energy, we had 4 different sources, right? Let me put that up there. We had the physical activity, the thermic effect of food, your NEAT, and your BMR. The huge effect, so these are the 4 different ways to affect it. A huge effect here is the BMR. And then if you want to drastically affect what's going in, the most major way you can affect that directly is via food. So the largest contribution or the largest direct effect that you can have on like energy in versus energy out immediately is definitely nutrition. So that you've probably heard this saying pretty frequently, abs are made in the kitchen. That is like a pretty, I would say, like accurate statement to make. You can definitely increase calories and increase activity, but it's easier to do one of those than the other one.
Yeah.
Each person is different from Miss Hexquisite, so you don't have to be muscular, but keep it healthy is key. Absolutely. You do not have to be muscular. Muscle in general, so if you have like one of the ratios that we look at is the ratio of fat mass to fat-free mass. Fat-free mass includes muscle and a few other things. So in general, as that ratio goes, well, I guess it depends which side I put that on. So in general, as that ratio goes up in terms of how much fat-free mass you have compared to fat mass, in general, we see better health outcomes. So it's probably better to have more fat-free mass compared to fat mass, or I would say, I would be comfortable saying it's a certainty in that sense, but it's not like, yeah, you don't have to be quote unquote muscular. Like you don't have to be bulge, like I don't have to be ripping my shirt when I flex or anything like that. The more important thing is the ratio there. So if you have more fat-free mass than fat mass.
Oh, my cat is signaling that we are done.
There's the cat signal. Yeah, if you guys have a few other questions here, we've got a few. You still hanging out with us. I'm not sure where RG3 streaming, but he's online somewhere. We're an hour and 10 minutes here, which is right around our goal. So if you guys have some questions, try to get those in, and I'll finish up these comments, and then we'll send you on your way. Thanks very much, Bit for Mess. Thanks for being here. Hope to see you again next week. Same to you, Completion Fails. Go on your way. This is here for your watching. What's Russian twists? So somebody said Russian twists. I'm honestly not a fan of these, Sammy, but it's basically when you
I've never
sit
heard of them.
in like a V-sit kind of thing, and typically you'll grab some sort of weight or a medicine ball, and you'll twist to the one side and then twist to the other side. So it's kind of like sit on your butt, elevate
Oh,
your feet a little bit. You could probably just like have them bent and with them still on the ground, and then you're twisting back and forth and back and forth. So lots of times you'll see people kind of like seated back to back, and they'll do this as like a duo exercise where they'll pass the medicine ball to the other person, and then the other person would place it on the other side, and then you'd pick it up on the other side. If that makes, I'm not sure if that's making sense, but it's basically like turning back and forth with some sort of weight, like a medicine ball of some sort.
RG's trying to hop on.
Nice. Alrighty. We'll leave you with that, and we hope to see you guys next week. We are here Mondays at 6
8
p.m.
CST.
6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. That's it, and that's all. Thank you guys very
Appreciate
much.
you guys a lot.
Peace.
Talk to you soon.